Okay, so we are live on YouTube. It is 7:08 p.m. right now on Saturday, September 27th. It's the last Saturday of the weekend, and like I've done every weekend this year, every Saturday this month, September, I'm going live. I'm going to do a little bit of plumbing theory with you guys. This is a different kind of scene than what you normally see. I'm normally inside the vocal booth behind me, but we're doing it out here this week, sort of thing. Okay. So let's just get going. I'm going to make sure I have everything set up. We'll go over some housekeeping and then I'll talk to you guys about what the plan is today. Give me 1 minute just to orient myself. Okay. All righty. Denver is here. What's happening in Denver? Today, everybody, we're going to be going into sizing. We're going to be going into venting, essentially. I'm going to go into sizing vents, um, what different charts we're going to rely upon, and then we're also going to go into, it depends on how far we go. We're going to potentially go into branch venting all the way down. Could you do an isometric drawing sometime with sizing, drainage, and vent? So Denver, isometric, I will see if I can do something about that. We are going to be doing sizing today. We're going to be looking at sizing vents, which will also talk about sizing drainage as well. There are two code books that you can rely upon in this conversation. One is the Ontario Plumbing Code Book. This is the version that Blundell made. Shout out to Blundell. And I'm also going to be using the NPC, the National Plumbing Code Book. I'll bring it up from time to time and let you know what codes you're looking at there. Let me minimize this. Here I am. And let me find what we are doing today. Give me a sec. I'm just going to grab a little bit of housekeeping from a previous YouTube slide because the housekeeping is going to be the same. So give me a minute. Animations. Okay, perfect. Slideshow. All right, let me share what I'm seeing. Okay, what's happening? My volume is super quiet. I don't know how to change that. Let me see. Oh, same as speakers. Are you sure you can't raise the volume on your end, Denver? Let me see. I don't know, Denver. I'm not sure how I can change that for you, brother. My volume is super quiet. It's been okay so far. Let me double check. Okay, so microphone HD, Realtek. Is anybody else experiencing that? I think it's just you and me, Denver. So if anybody else is experiencing low volume from me, I apologize. I'm not sure how to fix that right now. Denver, you're the only one that's saying something about it. So hopefully we're okay. Fingers crossed, okay? So, okay. So hold on, let's go here. Here's some housekeeping. So every Saturday, this is the final Saturday of September. If you guys want this sort of thing to continue over the next couple of months, you just got to let me know if this is useful to you, these plumb streams essentially. I'm going to be going through anything that's plumbing theory, plumbing math, or plumbing installations, but this is going to be driven by you. Whatever you guys are interested in, you got to let me know down in the comments below on the live stream, or you can go on to other videos and let me know as well. Go through the plumb streams. They're very useful for you, and just give me a shout out. Let me know what you're interested in, and I can continue this in the upcoming months, okay? You can watch this live on YouTube. There is a 20-second lag between YouTube and Zoom, so please keep that in mind. I do have my chat open up down here on my phone, so I will be able to answer your questions, but there's still a little bit of a lag, okay? If you want to join the Zoom class, make sure you go down to the newsletter and sign up in the newsletter. Also, go on to the Molotov Plumbing Academy. That's the same newsletter there. There are also free courses and there are also paid courses that you can look at as well. All right. And I will be normally sending out the Zoom link before the live stream. Unfortunately, I just couldn't do it this week. It was a little bit hectic. And the newsletter also tells you when new videos and new plumbing courses are coming your way. So just a couple of things to talk about in the academy. I got my plumbing math course, which is a paid for course, which goes through all the math in your plumbing apprenticeship. I have a free plumbing resume course there that you can sign up for absolutely free. And you get the template. You also watch the videos as I go through mine. And then I'm currently compiling, and I've been working on this quite a bit this week, a plumbing math fundamentals course. This goes through addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. I'm going through first lesson plans, and then I'm going through a lot of different questions that you can answer afterwards. There are going to be tests and all that involved in it, okay? Today we're going to be going through venting. There's no YouTube video tonight, by the way, and consider donating to the chat. Even something as small as a coffee helps a lot, okay? The topics of these live streams are subscriber driven, so think about what you want to learn, and we will have time at the end for listening to your ideas, okay? Let me go on to the PDF that we're going to work with. Sorry, the PowerPoint that we're going to work with today, okay? Give me 1 second. I think I have that. Perfect. Right here. Okay. Zoom. And let's go to the venting PowerPoint. Okay, so let's talk about venting. So the very first thing we got to talk about is um, two types of individual vents that we can run. Okay, so let's break this down. It's really hard to kind of just start smack dab in the middle of one subject. Normally, venting relies upon lessons on drainage. Drainage kind of brings you to the venting conversation, but that's one of the difficult parts about doing this with uh, the subscribers is that a lot of you are more advanced than people that are in basic plumbing, and that's why we're going into a subject that is a little bit more advanced than that. So let me kind of bring everybody else up to speed. When you have a drainage system, what you have to remember is the drainage system, we are attempting to constantly make it so that it has functional flow and functional drainage. And there are a few ways of doing this. One way is sizing correctly, and another way is adding vents into our system. A vent is intended to stop turbulence, it's intended to smoothen flow, it's intended to make sure that there isn't an excess of negative pressure, which is siphoning traps, that sort of thing. And there's a few more things that it does as well. But basically, if you don't have vents introduced into a plumbing system, you run the risk of siphoning traps. You run the risk of having very turbulent discharges. Turbulence basically means that pipes shake rapidly because of that. And you also run the risk of having vacuums created. In other words, it's not going to drain functionally. It's going to slowly drain because there's too much negative pressure built up. So what you end up doing is introducing vents to allow water to flow much more comfortably and smoothly, sort of thing. So now that I gave you a small little understanding as to why we have vents, we want to talk about sizing vents, and that's what everybody was interested in talking about from last week, okay? So if you are running a P-trap, every single fixture in our plumbing system requires a trap, and it also requires a vent. And there are two ways of typically connecting vents: individual vents, meaning a vent for every specific fixture, and that is through a back vent or through a continuous vent, okay? A back vent and a continuous vent looks a little bit different. A continuous vent, I'm going to just have to draw this for you. So let's say we have ourselves a TY here in our drainage system. And let's say this is the trap arm. And I know it's a horrible picture of a trap, but bear with me here. This is our trap. And this is our fixture outlet pipe. Okay. A way of running a continuous waste event is the vertical portion of this fitting right here becomes our vent. That's our continuous waste event. And this is usually the most, the type of venting that we are usually trying to aim for. Continuous waste vents are kind of like a better design rather than a back vent. Not to say that we shouldn't do back vents, but to say that we are always attempting to make it a continuous waste vent just because it cleans up much nicer and there aren't some complications that can come up from backups taking place. So for example, a back vent would be a trap arm that's very long. And instead of our TY being vertical like this, you would have a TY that comes up like so. And then you would have your vent run in this direction up like that. That is considered a back vent. And let me just show you for context where our trap is. This is our trap right here. Okay. So same idea, same fixture even, except we're running a back vent. And the issue with back vents is that it's a little bit harder or it's a little bit easier to clog up your vent in the case of a backup because what'll happen is if you have some sort of obstruction right over here and water starts to back up, it's going to be filling up this drain and this section quite thoroughly. And even though similar things happen here, it's just a better way of doing it. In other words, it cleans up much nicer. Okay, so we prefer the continuous waste and vent, but it's not a code violation to do a back vent. It's just something we prefer. Okay. So those are two types of vent connections. And now we're going to talk about sizing vents. To size a vent, you must know the size of the trap that the vent is serving. Okay, the size of the fixture trap. Okay, and there's a couple of charts that we're going to refer to. Once you establish the size of the trap, you can then use 7571 to size the vent that shall protect the trap. So let's go over here and let's pull up the two charts that we're aiming for. Okay. The very first chart that we want to look at whenever we're sizing is the size that is required for the fixture. And that chart is 7493. I don't have a picture. I might have a picture in it here, but I'm not sure. 7493 in the Ontario Plumbing Code Book is minimum permitted size of fixture outlet pipe and hydraulic load for fixtures. So this tells you what the minimum size trap is going to be because you have a fixture outlet pipe. Let's say your fixture outlet pipe is 1.5 inches. You are not allowed to downsize from that position. You can never downsize in a drainage system or a venting system. You are always sizing up going further down. And basically your fixture outlet pipes tells you the minimum size trap you're allowed to run for that fixture. So if we have an autopsy table, minimum size fixture outlet pipe is 1.5 inches. So we are allowed to run at minimum an 1.5 inch trap. Now that we've looked at 7493 and we know the size of the trap, we are able then to move forward to the size of the vent, which is a different chart altogether. And we're looking at 7571, minimum permitted size of vent trap based on size of trap. One more time. Jesse, what's happening? So minimum size of vent pipe based on size of trap. Happy Saturday. Okay, just making sure that my volume issue isn't going crazy. So this is 7571. Okay, so let's break down what this chart is looking at. All right. So 7571 is minimum permitted size of vent pipe based on size of trap. All right, so here's what we got. In the first column, we have size of trap served, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 5 inch, 6 inch. And then column 2, minimum size of vent pipe in inches, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. Oh, sorry, 1.25 inches, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 2 inch, 2 inch. Okay. So we got to kind of stipulate what exactly everything is saying. So what are the specific parameters of this chart? And what you're going to notice is in the Ontario Plumbing Code Book and even the National Plumbing Code Book, a lot of times they're talking about the minimum permitted size of vents, of drains, etc. And the reason why they do that is because in engineering, it's never a problem going larger. It's always a problem going lower. So you are never allowed to downsize a drain. You're never allowed to downsize a vent because you are violating other codes, but you are okay to upsize. And as soon as you upsize, you can upsize essentially to the point of the only time it's going to be a problem with upsizing is if you somehow violate some sort of other plumbing code or building code. But for the most part, there are lots of instances where we upsize vents all the time. So if you watch my day in the life of a plumber videos and you watch me roughing in fixtures in a house, in a single family dwelling where I'm using ABS, a lot of those 1.5 inch traps that I ran 1.5 inch vents as well. So look over here. According to this chart, if I have an 1.5 inch trap, I don't need 1.5 inch vent. I need only an 1.25 inch vent. So in those instances, I was upsizing that vent and inspectors wouldn't have a problem with that because I'm actually providing more air for that fixture than is minimally necessary. So for them, they're like, okay, it's getting even more air than it's intended to or it needs, so no problem sort of thing. So that's just something to keep in mind. Upsizing is usually not an issue, depending on if it violates other codes. Usually it doesn't, but downsizing is always an issue because let's say you have a fixture that's a 2 inch trap and it requires an 1.5 inch vent. If that vent continues down the venting system and becomes 1.25 inches, we are now restricting the amount of air that fixture needs. So we need to, at minimum, continue 1.5 inches until other things are introduced, sort of thing. Okay. So that's just something that you got to keep in mind when we're looking at these tables. The parameter is the minimum permitted size of a vent. It doesn't stipulate what the maximum permitted size of a vent is, okay? That's not something that goes into. Upsizing a lot of times is okay, all right? So let's just look at this very briefly, okay? So if you have an 1.25 inch trap, you have an 1.25 inch vent, you're good. If you have an 1.5 inch trap, you're still good with an 1.25 inch vent. If you have a 2 inch trap, you're good with an 1.5 inch vent. If you have a 3 inch trap, you're good with an 1.5 inch vent. 4 inch trap, 1.5 inch is good. 5 inches when it goes to 2, and then 6 inch it goes to 2. That sort of thing. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, how do these charts work with one another? We need a definition of a trap arm. Trap arm means the portion of a fixture drain between the trap weir and the vent pipe fitting. See Appendix Note A-18, page A121. So if you have your Ontario Plumbing Code, that's where you can look it up. The appendix is in the front of the book, okay? And this is what that looks like, all right? So what this chart basically does is it tells us the length that the trap arm is allowed to be before we introduce our vent. And we cannot violate this or else we run into potential issues down the road for the discharge of that fixture. So if we look at number one, column one is size of trap served in inches. So we have 1.25 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, and a second 4 inch, okay? Column two is maximum trap arm in meters. We have 1.5 meters, 1.8 meters, 2.4 meters, 3.6, 4.9, and 9.8. Keep in mind, if you look at this chart, you have two different 4 inches, okay? That's a big deal, and it depends on the slope that you are putting on it, okay? And then you have your minimum slope. So remember, the slope is at minimum. At minimum, you're allowed 1 in 50. Okay, and I could do the math for you right now because I don't have it memorized at the top of my head. Where are we at? Let me find my calculator. 1 in 50. Ooh. 1 in 50 is 4/16 or a quarter of an inch per foot. So at minimum, an inch and a quarter drain needs to be a quarter of an inch per foot. When you go to 4 inch, you have 1 in 100, and that is going to be, that's going to be 2/16 per foot, which is an eighth of an inch per foot. Okay, 1 in 50 is a quarter of an inch per foot. 1 in 100 is going to be an eighth of an inch per foot. 2/16, 1/8. Okay. If if those numbers confuse you, if a quarter of an inch per foot or an eighth of an inch per foot don't make sense to you, I did a Plumbstream a couple of weeks back, and I talked specifically about tape measure math, and then we went into looking at blueprints as well. Go in there and take a look at those videos, because it's going to break down your tape measure for you so you can understand what an eighth of an inch looks like, what a quarter of an inch looks like, half, 3/4, 5/8, 7/8, etc. Okay? So now we know what trap size we have according to our first chart, which was 7493. And now we've introduced 7563, which tells us how far that trap arm is allowed to be. We have a maximum distance before we introduce our vent. Okay, that's basically how that goes. And now we have minimum permitted size of vent pipe based on size of trap. So we have these three different charts just to start sizing venting. Okay, so in other words, I have the size of the fixture outlet pipe, I have the length of the trap arm, and I also now have the size of the individual vent based on the size of the trap. Okay, and remember, in Canada, every single plumbing fixture, and it's not just in Canada, any place that has functional plumbing, obviously, any place, any fixture, plumbing fixture in Canada, in this nation, has to have a trap and has to have a vent. So some of you might say, well, when we're wet venting, not every fixture does have a vent. This is actually inaccurate. Every fixture in that wet vented system has a vent, except it's a communal vent and it's upsized. Okay, and then they have a continuous vent that is run from the highest fixture as well. So that is just something to keep in mind. When you're wet venting and circuit venting, you are venting for a group of fixtures a lot of times. So the vents are there, they're just not individually vented the same way, but the vents are present. A lot of times we are upsizing the other vents to make sure that that makes them functional. Okay? You're not, okay, so Denver is saying, how do you know what the max distance is? From where, Denver? And the other one is, my 1970s home has no vent for the stand-up shower. So the question, Denver, is was it wet vented, which is a different style of venting? It's a different approach to venting, because if it was, it might be vented, but maybe not individually vented. Uh, or maybe you're right. Maybe it doesn't have an individual vent either, or it's not wet vented at the same time, which means that you could have a slow drain in that system simply because there's not enough air going into that pipe. Okay, does that make sense? So now we have these three charts. Let's look at 7571 very quickly. So column one of 7571, size of trap served in inches. Okay, so we have an inch and a quarter trap. Our vent is going to be, did I just do this? Oh, I'm sorry. See, I'm tired. We did 7571. Yeah. So you guys understand, we have only two charts that we're looking. Oh, no, we still have three. We have 7493 and these two, okay? So let's size a few fixtures, and these were drawn by hand. This will be noticed for you. Max distance from trap arm to vent. Okay. Denver, look over here. 7563, maximum trap arm. Maximum length of the trap arm at inch and a quarter is 1.5 meters, okay? Maximum length of the trap arm is 1.8 meters for inch and a half. Maximum length of the trap arm for a 2-inch trap is 2.4 meters, 3.6, 4.9, 9.8. So there's two different 4 inches, and depending on what slope you give it, either a quarter of an inch or eighth of an inch per foot, you can run a different length on the trap arm, okay? That's just something to keep in mind. Oh, okay, so there's no formula for that, Denver. That is what is given to us. And I think it basically looks at, so actually, from what I understand, the formula is there's a rule in the plumbing code book that basically says you cannot exceed, oh, I'm gonna botch this. You cannot exceed two times the trap diameter of fall on a trap arm. And if you give me a minute, I might be able to do some magic to find that. Okay, was it venting? Give me a sec. Give me a sec. Okay, I think we're here. Hey, this is going to be a little bit difficult. So there's a couple of codes. Essentially, one is the maximum fall allowed on a trap arm. You're not allowed to exceed, from what I remember, two times the trap diameter, something like that. And if you look at this ratio between 1.5 and 150, we're actually making sure that we don't exceed that amount of fall. Okay, because remember, too much fall, too much slope on a pipe leads to its own issues, which is a lot of times it will evacuate the water but leave any debris behind. So leave that with me. Maybe I'll be able to find that for you guys a little bit later, so that we can have that conversation because that's a very important code. But that's the formula they're working with, if that makes any sense, okay? I'll find it later, guys. Sorry. Let's keep moving on, okay? So let's size a few fixtures, and I drew these, so just heads up, okay? So we got a WC here. Let me write these out. So this is a water closet. This is a kitchen sink. Let's say this is a lav. Let's say this is back-to-back lavs. Okay. And this also looks like a kitchen sink. And this also looks, let's say this is a laundry, a clothes washer, okay? So we need three charts, remember? Well, actually, in this instance, we only need two charts. The two charts we need is 7493. Water closet, it's a 3-inch pipe, 4 fixture units. So the trap on a water closet is 3 inches. Okay. Yep. Kitchen sink, you're looking at 1.5 inches. Okay. Lab is 1.25 inches. These two labs are both 1.25 inches. Clothes washer should be 2 inch. Let me see. Yep, 2 inch trap. I always get back vent and vent mixed up. How would that look like on a drawing? Okay, so Denver, I did that a little bit earlier, but I'll try to do it again for you. Clothes washer is 2 inches. Okay, kitchen sink again. And 1.25 inches. So now that we know the size of our the size of our drains, the size of our traps or fixture outlet pipe, I went through everything there. We can now size our vents. Okay, so let's take a look at the water closet up here. We have a 3-inch trap. Okay, which gives us an 1.5 inch vent minimum. Are you allowed to run a 2-inch vent here? Yes, you are. You are upsizing, but you are. But at minimum, you are going to size it as 1.5 inches. And here's what you got to keep in mind. Whenever you're on a plumbing test, the teacher is not interested in you upsizing. They want to know that you understand the limits of the code. In other words, they want to understand you know the minimum pipe size that you are going to be able to put in there. And also, you got to think of it in regards to if you had to bid on a job, if you decided to size an entire house at 15 inch, as long as it doesn't violate any other building codes, technically you can run 15 inch. But that's going to be the most expensive bid compared to all the other people that are sizing for minimum permitted sizing, in other words. So that's just something to keep in mind. Practically, it doesn't make sense financially. And also on a test, we want to know you understand the distinctions between minimum and maximum. Okay. That way we can trust you with a code book. All right. So now that we have that, we look over here to this chart and we can size the vent correctly. Kitchen sink is 1.5 inches, which is this beast right here. If we follow it along, the minimum size vent pipe is 1.25 inches, okay? Same thing here, lav is 1.25 inches. Minimum size vent pipe is also going to be 1.25 inches. And the way dual vents work, this is called a dual vent. You basically have to serve the largest trap that there is. The dual vent is sized according to the largest trap. So in other words, let's say these weren't two lavs. Let's say you had a 2-inch urinal here instead. You're going to serve the 2-inch urinal, which is going to make this vent 1.5 inches. Okay? But if we're running two lavs, is that correct? Let me double check. Yeah, 2 inches is going to be 1.5 inches. But if you're running two lavs, their vents are both 1.25 inches, so you can run it at 1.25 inches. Clothes washer is 2 inch, so we have an 1.5 inch vent. Kitchen sink again is 1.25 inch vent. Okay, does that make sense so far? Any confusion there? We got 8 people in the room. Can you guys do me a favor? Can you hit that thumbs up if you like what you're seeing? Also, you can write down in the comments if there are other things that you want to see in the future. If you like these plum streams, if you want to continue on in October doing these, let me know and I'll be able to put some stuff together for you. This has been a fun experiment, but it is very demanding to put together plumbing theory for you guys. But thankfully, I'm creating plumbing courses on the Academy, so it is a labor of love. Okay? So now that we've done that, let me erase all that. Let me move forward. What is that called? This is called a dual vent, a vent that serves multiple fixtures. Okay? This is what a dual vent looks like when you're bad at art. Minimum permitted size of vent pipe based on size of trap. It's the same concept like I was telling you before. We got to look at the largest trap served. Okay, 7582 means a vent pipe that serves two fixtures and connects at the junction of the trap arms. Okay, the size of the individual vent and dual vent shall be sized according to 7571 according to the largest trap served. So if you have 1.25 inches on the one trap, if you have 1.25 inches here, and then 2 inch over here, you are serving the largest trap, okay? The 2-inch one here, because remember the 2-inch trap requires an 1.5 inch vent. The 1.25 inch trap only requires the 1.25 inch vent, but we are never allowed to downsize in our plumbing or our venting system. So if we were to run 1.25 inch for this dual vent here, it would be a big no-no because we are downsizing the 2-inch trap, which requires an 1.5 inch vent. So we have to make sure that we run at minimum the vent size that is required for the largest trap served. Okay? So we would run this at 1.5 inches. This is 2-inch, and this vent would be 1.5 inches. All right. So Denver, we're looking at a dual vent. So it's not an independent vent. It's not an individual vent because an individual vent means that it's for one fixture. This is automatically, technically, I want to say that it's automatically a branch vent. It's multiple vents in one, but that would depend on the definition, and we could always look at that a bit later, if that makes sense, okay? So when sizing an individual vent or dual vent, the length is not taken into consideration. Okay. So the reason why they had to make that stipulation is because, kind of like I was saying just now, a branch vent, and I'm going to just go off the top of the dome here. The branch vent is uh, the junction of two or more vent pipes, blah, blah, blah. So there's a formal definition of it. Technically, this is a junction of two or more vent pipes, but whenever you're sizing branch vents, you have to take the length into the you have to take the length of the branch vent into consideration. So because this is sort of like a branch vent, but it's special, it's called a dual vent, they're just reminding you, by the way, we don't specifically treat this like a branch vent. We're going to treat this separately like a dual and make it a dual vent. So don't make that mistake, it's saying. Coolio? All right. How do we size a dual vent? Same chart, but you size the largest trap size available. Okay. So this is usually a activity I do with the class. Size of the trap and size of the vent. Why don't we go ahead and do a few of these so that you get the gist? So 7493 is where we find the size of the trap. So let's go ahead and find that. Inch and a half. Technically, we find the fixture outlet pipe here. So it's inch and a half. Okay. Bathtub is inch and a half. Bedpan washer is 3 inch. Bidet is inch and a quarter. Clothes washer domestic is 2 inch. 2 inch trap. Dishwasher domestic is, where we at? Inch and a half. Okay, I'm going to end that there, and I'll just do the vents for you right now. So autopsy table, if it's an inch and a half trap, you're looking at an inch and a quarter vent. Bathtub, same thing, inch and a half is inch and a quarter. 3 inch is going to be inch and a half. Inch and a quarter is inch and a quarter. 2 inch is inch and a half. And then dishwasher is inch and a half, which is inch and a quarter. All right. So I know for a lot of you, when you first sizing vents and sizing drains, it takes a while to get your head wrapped around the concepts. And that's normal for everybody. Okay. So don't be discouraged if you're not going as fast as me, for example. After you've seen enough drain sizes and trap sizes, and you've done enough sizing of individual vents, it's very fast for you to pull out, okay, it's inch and a quarter, 2 inch and a half, inch and a half, inch and a half, and then it's 2 inch, 2 inch. I think I missed 1 inch and a half. So it just gets faster the more repetitions that you do. Okay. But basically, a lot of these, not all of them, I already know approximately what size vent it's going to be, sort of thing. So water closet, inch and a half. Urinal, if that's 2 inch, that's inch and a half. Sink, that's domestic. If it's inch and a quarter, it's inch and a quarter, that sort of thing. The chart is pretty much memorized in my head. Denver is saying, when I was in trade school, I always found it difficult distinguishing how to measure the distance for branch vent sizing. Yes, branch venting gets very complicated. Um, And actually, what's complicated about this, and shout out to Rebecca, I've been helping Rebecca with branch fence sizing today. Um, what's really complicated and went through extensively the conversation about definitions of the length of these different vents. So basically, where does the branch vent start? Where does the branch vent end? And by knowing that definition, you're able to understand, like you can count up basically the accumulative length of the branch vent. And then if you look at headers, what's the actual definition of the header? Where does it start and where does it end? That is where the complications I find are the worst because it's definition based. And if you mess that definition up, you are adding meters that you shouldn't be adding, and you might mess up your entire calculation because of that. So branch venting, sizing headers, sizing stack vents and vent stacks. It gets complicated, but if you go slowly and methodically, you should be able to get it. And when I get these courses up and running, I'll have lessons on all this stuff that you can purchase, okay? Make sure to get onto the newsletter so you know when those courses come out. Oh, and by the way, I should have said this right at the beginning. Kit, what's happening? What code book are you reviewing? Is this the MA plumbing code? This is the Ontario plumbing code. That's what you're looking at here. I can hop into the national plumbing code a little bit later. I should have told you all I am doing CFQ prep. I'm tutoring for that. If any of you need CFQ prep tutoring, hit me up. Uh, you can find my email. Let me put my email down here right now in the chat. So email is kennymolotov@gmail.com. Okay. So if you guys need any CFQ prep or even CFQ tutoring, sorry, if you need any help with tutoring just for basic, intermediate, and advanced, you can hit me up for that as well. All right. So, okay. So now that we've gone through that, what's next on this? Branch fence. This is where it starts to get really dicey, okay? Dicey only because the definitions become a bit crazy. And I know I got on a little bit late today, but I'm gonna still get off at 8 p.m. I'm bushed, bro. It's been a day. Branch vent means a vent pipe that is connected at its lower end to the junction of two or more vent pipes, and that at its upper end is connected to another branch vent, stack vent stack, or header, or terminates in open air. Okay. So normally I get my class to figure out where the branch vent is. Where does it start? Starts right here. So look over here. This is the individual vent for the water closet. This is the individual vent for the lav. This is the individual vent to the bathtub, but this is the first time that two vent pipes are connected. And remember, the definition is a vent pipe that's connected at its lower end to the junction of two or more vent pipes. So we got one vent pipe here, one vent pipe here. This is the beginning of our branch vent, okay? That is the location. Sizing branch vents. We're not going to be able to get through all of this, but I want to just run you through this chart very quickly, okay? So this is the chart in the Ontario Plumbing Code, 7583. And let me pull it up in the National Plumbing Code. Yeah, 2583. So it's really interesting when you go between the national and the plumbing. I'm sorry, the national and the Ontario. The Ontario is the 7.5, but the national is the 2.5. So same thing. 8.3 is 5.83 is the same. The only difference is the 2 in the national and the 7 in the Ontario. Okay. And honestly, the chart looks very similar, if not the exact same. Yep. It looks almost I'd have to go through it more thoroughly, but it looks like it's the exact same. 335, 245. So I think they're using the same chart here. Here's what you have to notice, okay? Sizing of branch vents and headers, continuous vents and circuit vents. That's what this chart is designed for, okay? Now let's look at all the columns. You got total hydraulic load served by vent in fixture unit. Then you have size of vent pipe in inches, and then maximum length of vent pipe in meters. And here is where it gets super confusing, okay? What you have to understand, especially when you're sizing branch vents, stack vents, vent stacks, headers, continuous vents, all of these, is you have to understand uh, their full distance. If you do, you got to find that distance once. So in other words, You find the distance of a branch vent, you count it all up, you add that together, and let's say it came to 26 meters is the distance of your branch vent. From now going forward, your branch vent always stays at 26 meters. You are never using any other numbers. What happens is sometimes people will count the hydraulic load of all their fixtures, and they'll slowly count them up, and they'll also slowly count up the branch vent. The branch vent doesn't work like that. The branch vent is 26 meters from the get-go, and you got to use that number throughout the rest of it, even though you're adding hydraulic load. The hydraulic load is counted according to every fixture, okay? And you got to move up the branch vent according to that. So the size of the branch vent stays the same. The hydraulic load changes, okay? So let's just look at the chart. And this is probably where we're going to end this conversation. And I can open this up to questions that you guys might have, okay? That's wet vented. Yes, it was, I think. Um, let's look at this chart, okay? So the first thing is let's look at hydraulic load, okay? So for 2 fixture units, if you have a hydraulic load of 2 fixture units, meaning that all the fixtures that you add up in your plumbing system come up to 2 fixture units, you're allowed to run an 1.25 vent, a total of 9 meters. Now, if we look over here and our branch vent is 26 meters, then 1.25 is not going to do because we are way above 9 meters. So we have to continue down the chart to the right. And if you look at this section of the chart, 1.5 and onwards at 2 fixture units, so if we just follow this row, as soon as we reach 26 meters, as soon as we reach 1.5, we can run 1.5 infinitely. We can run it to Jupiter if we wanted to. So we can run that vent very far and we'll never have an issue. An inspector can never say, hey, you can't run 1.5 for that distance. Basically, we upsize to 1.5 and we continue on. Let's say, though, we had 7.5 fixture units. We'd have to go down to the row next to it or below it. We have 7.5, which means that within the tolerance of 8. And what's our branch vent length? It's 26 meters, so we can't run 1.25. It only allows us 9 meters. And now we look at 1.5. We're allowed to run at 7.5 fixture units, 30 meters. Are we within 30 meters? Yes. Our branch vent is 26 meters. Okay, so we would use 1.5 for that distance. Let's say our hydraulic load continued on and we got to 47 fixture units. Okay, we'd be all the way down here. We're at 47 fixture units. And remember, our branch vent is a total of 26 meters. So we come over here. We are not even allowed to use 1.25, not permitted. So at 47 fixture units, you're not even allowed to look at 1.25 pipes, okay? But we come over to 1.5 and it says you're allowed to run an 1.5 vent, or branch vent, at 4.5 meters. Are we below at 4.5 meters? No, we're way above that, so we can't use 1.5. We're allowed to use a 2-inch branch at this point for 15 meters. Are we below 15 meters or above? We're above 15 meters. We're at 26 meters. So we go one more distance, and that's 3-inch, 120 meters. Are we within that? Yes, we are. So we have to upsize our vent to 3-inch at this point, okay? So that is the beginning of branch venting. I just wanted to show you this chart. If you guys want me to continue on branch venting in the next class, if you want to continue this in October, let me know down in the comments below because I can take this lesson and continue moving it forward the way we're doing here. If you guys have any questions, please ask them now. I'm going to spend the last 3 minutes just talking to you guys basically. But that was a very small snippet of what branch venting looks like in the plumbing code, both the national and the Ontario, that sort of thing. Yeah, and Remember, if you need CFQ prep for plumbing, if you have any issues with, and you need tutoring for plumbing math, plumbing theory, etc., hit me up. That is what the email here is for. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes if you guys want to ask questions. It doesn't have to be related to the topic today. It could be about anything. Oh, okay. Sounds good. Okay, Denver, let me do this very quickly. Back venting versus individual venting. So, Denver, you're mixing two words up. Back venting is a style of individual venting. It's a style of running your vent. Continuous waste and vent is also a style of individually venting. So these are two different styles of individually venting. You back vent, and it's an individual vent. You continuous waste and vent, and it's an individual vent as well. So let me just show you a diagram. Sorry for repeating myself, peeps. Let me get this out to Denver so he understands. Okay, so look, we got our TY right here. I know that's a terrible TY, but we have a TY vertical, and the pipe is run down and out. Okay, and this is our trap arm. And this is our trap, okay? And the vertical portion of this is our vent right here. This is called a continuous waste and vent, okay? This is a style of individually venting a fixture, okay? This is also what you would do in a wet vent. The highest fixture in a wet vent requires a continuous vent. This is the same thing, but this is one style of individually venting. The second style of individually venting is something called a back vent. You have your trap, and you have a very long trap arm. And what you would have to do is turn the TY on its side, on its back, I should say, like so. And then you would run your vent from the trap arm right here. Ooh, and I would do that in green, like this. All right. That is the difference between continuous waste and vent and also back vent. Okay, Denver? But yeah, but how you I don't know what you mean, Denver. So Kit is saying, I'm a new apprentice and don't have a code book yet, so I'm just watching to see what I can learn and understand. No problem, Kit. I hope it's helpful to you, friend. I hope it's fun. Um, Kit and everybody else, make sure you go to the Molotov Plumbing Academy. You're going to be getting new plumbing courses coming out. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Um, Long overdue for plumbing courses, so we're going to get that going. Do me a favor, can you guys hit that thumbs up for me? Really appreciate that. I'm going to be getting off in about 1 minute, okay? Because my brain is fried. I'm tired and I need to rest. And tomorrow I got a class of my own that I got to go to, which is not plumbing related. So that's the plan, fam. Um, yeah, I hope this was useful to you guys. Let me stop sharing this beast. It's fun so far. I hope so, Kiet. Thank you. I enjoy plumbing theory quite a bit. So remember, join the newsletter, and that way you're going to find out if there are no new plumb streams, new plumbing videos on YouTube, and also new plumbing courses on the Academy. And go to the Academy. You could also join the newsletter there. And there are a couple of free courses. Well, there's one free course on the Academy, and I'm working on the second one right now. No problem, no problem. Kiet was saying. And that's pretty much it, guys. So if you want to see more plumb streams, if you want me to do more content like this every Saturday going forward in October, make sure you write somewhere in the comments or reach out to me. Just let me know because I can cover whatever topics you guys want because I enjoy this stuff too. It's just hard to kind of hunker down sometimes and get things ready for you, but I am willing to put in that work if you guys are interested, okay? Aside from that, I hope you guys are having a wonderful Saturday and wonderful weekend. No video this week. It's just been too crazy right now, and hopefully I could get those videos up and running, but it's just been bananas. All right. I'm not getting any questions. So much love, guys. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you in the next one.